Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badasses. Welcome. I love today's topic, the Law of Relativity, and it is very fitting for news I will share with you in a little bit. But before I do that, I thought I might say hello to everyone. And as you join, please let me know you are arriving by simply saying hello. If you are new, also let me know that as well. As you may notice, I am flying solo today. And as you can imagine, I am excited and nervous all in the same breath. It's a lot of pressure to do a full episode by yourself, but I'm up for the challenge and I'm going to do my best. And as I've mentioned, I do have some news to share, and I want to wait a little bit to allow more people to arrive. So while I do that, I would like to let you know a little bit about what is new this week for me. This week, I went back to high school. Yep, you heard me right. I went for my daughter and we had an open house. And this year she is a freshman. And I just loved the whole process that they implemented. They started off in first period and then they rotated every 15 minutes to the next period until you continued on and you were at the last period of the day. And it really allowed my daughter to see what friends she would be with in her class and the order of her classes, how far away each of them were. And it was just really well done. And my daughter was just excited. Her best friend had 3 classes with her, and she had some other classes with other friends as well. She's mostly glad that she had so many friends that are also going to be at lunch with her. And she likes school really for the social aspect, not really the mental aspect or what it is that she's learning. For those that saw her on a previous episode, you may recognize that she's a bit of a social butterfly. But as I went back, it had me thinking back on my freshman year, because that's the year that she is starting today or this, next week. And I was wondering what others thought about high school. And I wanted to hear from you and say hello, and also let me know if you loved high school, somewhat enjoyed it, or hated it. So I'm interested just to hear from the audience what your perspective was. And then also be sure to say hello as you guys are coming in. I feel like mine was mixed. I had some things that were really great, and then there were some things that maybe weren't so great. So I'm curious if you guys relate to that. And while you're at it, I'm also going to ask you to describe what you were like in high school. I'd be curious what labels you might give yourself, because that's very relevant to today's topic that we're going to be talking about. For me, I would say that I was well-rounded. I was an athlete. I was a dancer. I played tennis. I was in choir. I was in theater. I was in newspaper. I was in everything under the sun. But I would say I was probably more of an average student. I didn't really go like my daughter to school to learn. I appreciate some of the things more now, but that wasn't what I really enjoyed about high school. I was known, but probably I wouldn't say that I was in the popular crowd. I think I hear a lot of people say that. I think a lot of us feel like we weren't necessarily in the popular crowd. And I think what might surprise most of you is that I didn't drink. I wasn't into any of those experiences that a lot of my generation did in high school, or even college for that matter. So let's see who's joined us and what you have added about your high school experience. So let me click over there. Man, we got a lot of people coming in. So thank you guys. All right, we have Karina coming in. She says, good morning. Good morning to you, Karina. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you have a busy morning, so I appreciate you jumping on. We have Mr. Hoots. Miss Sarah, what's up, you badass? Yes. What's up, you badass? I'll be seeing you next week. Mr. Hoots is going to be joining me next week. He's going to be talking about the law of relativity with me and his experiences. And I just know it's going to be an amazing conversation. So thank you so much for joining us today. I also have Andrew. For those that don't remember, Andrew previously was on here with us along with Kelly. And so he says, howdy, thank you so much for joining. Good morning. Good morning, Sandra. Good to see you. This is my mom. And so thanks for joining and jumping on today. We have Bryce. He says, good morning. Good morning to you. You are getting up early. You are over on the West Coast side. So thank you for jumping on. Kim, good morning to one of my favorite, beautiful, and amazing badass ladies. Thank you, Kim. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for just your overall continued support. Andrew also said, congrats or condolences. Yes, so we'll be jumping into that a little bit more. Margaret, thank you so much. Let's pull her up. I'm having difficulty getting it. There we go. She says, happy blessed morning, Sarah and everyone. So welcome, Margaret. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Abbas. He says, good morning, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate all of your comments and all of the conversation and things like that we have had. And Miss J. Rowe, she's also coming in saying, good morning, badasses, back to high school. She says, love it. Fun bonding times with your daughter, listening when I can. Thanks for the company today and good energy. And she says, sending my Florida sunshine. So thank you. Andrew said, the year of feeling vulnerable, freshman year. Yes. So think about it. You're the low man on the totem pole. You are now starting that high school and on all of those feelings that you have from a vulnerability perspective, not really knowing what's in store for you. And Margaret also says your daughter is an amazing, lovely person, like her mama. Thank you so much, Margaret. I appreciate that. Andrew also said, loved, enjoyed, hated, all of the above. 100%. I think we all probably have those experiences. Karina says, high school, especially last year's, were the best one in my life. That's awesome. We had so much fun and met my husband. Aw. And so Tudor is her husband. He is a ball of energy. And so I'm sure that was very much fun, Karina. Adam says, my parents moved me from middle school in Illinois to Florida the summer before my freshman year of high school. And he hated them for it. Reflecting back, now one of the best moves ever. So that's interesting. So maybe, Adam, as we talk this week, you will let me know a little bit more about that experience. Maybe we should have that be one of the things that you talk about, because reflection provides more insight. And yep, Andrew, that is you. Margaret says, loved drama classes and sports. So yes, I was in both of those as well, Margaret, that athletic side of doing the physical sports, but then I also loved theater as well, and doing musicals, dancing, all of those types of things. So I love that. And I love you and I have that music connection as well. You really love music in a lot of the things that you do. And then Miss Brenda Lees is joining us as well. So hello, Brenda Lees. We also have Lindsay. She said, just a little bit late. You're not late. You're here right on time. And then Jen also said, I was a cheerleader for a few years. Tennis, yep, with me. Choir and student council, good and bad times. But I do wish I spent more time with my friends and not high school sweetheart, but that's high school. You know, that's a very interesting perspective. My daughter is very much into her friends. and she doesn't understand why some of her friends are so into boys or things like that. And I just told her that's just the way it's going to be for some people. There are some people, depending on what they're looking for or needing, some of those individuals are going to be looking for that connection with a person, that intimacy, or maybe, thinking about the things that they're really lacking, maybe, or the things that they're wanting, that connection. So it just depends. And my daughter is, all about friends. So we'll see how that continues as she continues on. Exciting freshman year for us. Appreciate you for this. Thank you, Margaret. And then Adam, we moved to Mustard Street, and I hate mustard still to this day. You know what? I hate mustard too. I am with you, Adam. All right, let me do this. I would like to take a little bit of a sip. I think one of the things that I'm going to struggle with is taking a moment and having some silence, and it's okay to not talk the entire time. So I'm going to take a moment just to have something to drink. All right, awesome. All right, well, let's see. Miss Kim, she said, I had fun in high school. I was into it, a lot of things like you, drill team, baseball girl for our baseball team, singing. I had a lot of friends in all different groups, athlete, popular, nerd, partiers, choir, etc. I was basically like I am now, liking to be around people who are different and the same as me, loving what our differences bring to our relationships. Oh, yes. I love that. I love the different aspects of what each of those brought out of me. So in dance, there's certain things that were brought out. Choir and theater were something different than when I played tennis. They all just bring out a different part of you. I think that's a good perspective, or a good insight, Kim. Yes, and Miss Riley is amazing. I love her so much. And then happy Friday, beautiful badasses. So thank you, Lisa, for joining us. So thank you, guys. We're going to dive on in. And as I alluded earlier, I have some news for the audience. Cate has made the decision to focus her efforts on other things. So BOYBAS is something she didn't feel she could continue to invest her time in. And, it's a little weird because I feel like all of the episodes that we have planned at the end of we planned them at the end of last year, but yet each time we have a new law, there seems to be something that comes up that's very much fitting for the topic that we're going to be talking about. And today, the topic is no different. So before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a moment to thank Cate for some amazing times. And I know she will be missed by you, and I know she will definitely be missed by me. And I hope you will reach out to her and let her know how much she meant to you, and just send her love. As with all decisions, we have to weigh what's going on in our life and determine what's best for us. And so with that, I also spent some time thinking about what I wanted. And I thought, do I want to cancel BOYBAS for the rest of the year? And I can tell you that my immediate response to that was no. It was a resounding no. And then when I started to think about what that meant, I had 2 days to prepare for flying solo. So I had to figure out and decide, did I feel comfortable with that? And that question to myself was met with, yes, I'm scared, followed by, why would I let that stop me? Because that's just, who I am. I could easily have found someone else. I actually reached out to a few people, and I had individuals immediately saying yes. And now thinking about that, if I had thought, that wasn't an option, I would have missed those opportunities. So if I hadn't, if I immediately had said, I'm not going to find anybody late time, there's really no options, I wouldn't have found other options or other opportunities in what it is that I was looking for. And so with that information, it armed me with deciding what it is that I wanted to do. And I decided to push myself. So I'm hosting the first week by myself. And so I'm going to talk about the law. And then on the third week, I'm going to bring up a guest co-host. And I have already spoken to some past individuals that have joined us before, and one that hasn't. And I believe I already have a guest co-host that will join me each week. And I'm still ironing out all of the details. But what that means is I'm not going anywhere. I could have thrown in the towel, but I love this. It's my passion. I love doing BOYBAS, and I plan to stay committed to it through the end of the year. As my mom can attest, my parents didn't raise no quitter. So I'm sticking to finishing out what it is that I set out to do. So you're now probably thinking, well, what about next year? So next year, I am exploring other ideas, but I still want to do things that are similar to what it is that I'm doing now. And it may not be every week, but I still want to interview people, have panels. And I've also been exploring the idea of maybe even a call-in show. I don't know, but I'd be curious what you guys think about that. But those right now are just ideas. So let's see what people are saying in the comments real quick. Let's see. Yes, Carrie saying, you will be missed, Cate. You did a great job. She did. She is amazing. And she will definitely be missed by everyone. Laura joining us, she said homeschooled. Oh, this is on high school. So I only know about high school from watching my son go through it. No prom, no football games. Oh, no sports, no friends. And before anybody says, oh, wow, you're lucky, let me say that homeschooling is not always a blessing. Oh, well, Laura, it'll be interesting to talk about that today, especially related to today's topic, in thinking about the perspective that we have on what it is we don't have versus what it is that we do have. So that should really be an enlightening thing to sort of think about related to your comment today. Yes, hang on, let me go back up. Hoots also said, take a moment for us all badasses. Oh, I think that was for earlier. And then Margaret says, we'll miss you, Cate. However, I understand we are all where we should be. Exactly. That's really the biggest thing, is that things happen for a reason. And that's really the topic we're going to be talking about today. Andrew says, I've had great partners who left. It sucks, but you've got enough charisma. Oh, thank you. And smarts to keep this going. I feel better just spending a few minutes listening. Thank you, Andrew. Brenda Lee says, heck yes. And then Laura said, great to see you on this forum. Oh, Maria's joining us. She says, good morning, badasses. Good to see you. Jen says, we will miss Cate. She was awesome. She is. I totally understand. I know that we all have to prioritize life, focus on health, family, and work. And what we can manage is important. And glad you're continuing, Sarah. Thank you, Jen. Margaret also says, all you do will be great as it should. That's awesome. Yes. And then Margaret adds, homeschooling was a blessing for us in elementary level. And Carrie also added, I second Andrew's comment. So thank you guys. Yeah. And continue to also reach out to Cate. Let her know, that you loved the thing, her being on and things like that. Also just understanding that she's also going through some things as well. So for me, it's just really about sending love out to her. All right. So I also want to say that, as you can see, I will especially appreciate the comments and the interactivity on solo days, so it helps me know I'm not talking to myself. So one, I just want to take a moment to just say thank you for the comments and things like that. It really also just helps with the interactivity of things, to be able to pull upon the things that you guys are thinking. So continue to add those. So today we're going to be talking about the law of relativity. And first, I thought that I would cover the scientific law of relativity, and then we'll dive into the 12 universal laws definition. But as we always did in the past, we wanted to add the scientific side of laws when they applied. And so Einstein's theory of relativity actually has two parts. It's the special relativity and the general relativity. Now, as I started diving in, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I'm going back to, high school days, or, which is very appropriate from earlier. I'm like having to relearn things that that I was taught earlier, and now having to figure out, relearn some of these things. And it's things that you know about, but it's like, how does this actually apply? And so when I dove into the special relativity, it's really related to how time and space are connected. And it simply just states that time can change depending on how fast something is moving. I do best whenever I have some examples. So let's say that I'm a twin, and I have a twin that takes a super fast space trip and returns. And I might find that my twin is actually ends up not aging as much as I have. So I've been on Earth, I've stayed, but they've been going on a super fast trip through space. And so what is happening is that it's a mind-bending idea about how the universe can impact things. So as things are going faster, those things actually slow down, meaning that the aging process slows down. And so time is relative and can stretch and compress depending on how fast you're moving. And the faster you go, the more time slows down for you compared to someone who's not moving fast. And so they called that sort of the twin paradox. And I found that fascinating because I just didn't really remember that part of it. You remember it really related to the famous equation E equals mc squared that says that energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. And it really is about how mass can turn into energy and vice versa. So as we start to go through eventually the 12 laws, or the law of relativity related to the 12 universal laws, keep that in mind, because it's relevant in as we start to look at it from a spiritual perspective as well. There's also the general relativity. And it says that gravity is not just a force, that Einstein explains that gravity is actually bending in space. And again, I need an example. So we have a trampoline in the back. So imagine there's this huge, heavy ball that is in the middle of the trampoline, and it makes a dent. And then you throw on some smaller balls, and as you do that, they start to roll towards the heavy ball because of the dent. And it's the same way massive objects like planets make space bend. And that's why we feel the gravity pull us toward the Earth. And so it's interesting to think about that bend in the world. And ultimately, the relative motion, everything is moving relative to something else. And so if you're in a car and it's passing another car, you know how sometimes it feels like that other car is going backwards, but it's just because you are actually going faster. And so it tells us that there's no absolute time, that no one right time for everyone, and different observers can measure time differently based on their speed and the gravity around them. And so when you start to think about that, it can be a really cool experiment to think about, that we're all viewing things completely different and measuring it completely different. And Einstein's theory really changes the way we think about space, time, and gravity. And it helps scientists really just understand things like black holes and how the universe works. And Einstein really just showed us that time and space aren't as fixed as we thought, which is a cool concept for us related to how it is we view the world. And that they can also change depending on speed and gravity. And so I thought that was pretty cool as you start to think about it. So as I also looked up some songs that were related to the law of relativity, just because I love music. And it was interesting. I found a rap song related to it. I found a choir song, a rock heavy metal song. And then I also found one where two guys were playing guitars. It reminded me of the guys from the Big Bang Theory. But the choir song was probably the one that stood out the most. And the girl, I'm trying to remember it, she was like, I am energy, I am mass, I am light. And so it was just funny to, as they did the song, it was very choral in nature, but they had a whole album about relativity and all of those different things. The rap guy was a guy on YouTube that people were sending in messages and saying, hey, we wanted you to talk about the law of relativity. We want you to rap about that. So he made up a rap about the law of relativity. And then, of course, the heavy metal ones, you're just sitting there headbanging. So I just thought that was interesting, just to look up the different ways that people explain the law of relativity. All right, let's go into the comments. And also, let me grab some more to drink. Give me a second. All right, Nicole is joining us. She said, hey, everyone. Hi, Sarah. Thank you, Brenda Lee. She said, we are here for you. Yes, Carrie, I'm going deep today. I'm going to go even deeper as we really get into the law related to the 12 universal laws. And I think we have one other one. Yes, Kim. She said, I will miss seeing Cate here, but love her and understand that she needs to take care of what is best for her. Yes, absolutely. And I also excited to see what you will do with BOYBAS as you push yourself to continue these amazing discussions each week. So thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. All right, so let's jump in. What I would like to do is switch over. I previously had created this when we talked about the law of relativity. And so this is what the law says. Every obstacle in life is an opportunity to change your perspective and improve yourself. These challenges from the universe teach us to stop judging events and people as good or bad. And the law of relativity reminds us that everything exists in relation to our perspective. Challenges are a part of life, but they aren't as bad as they seem. Always be grateful for your challenges, as life is happening for you, not to you. And so I just really love this particular law. And I'm going to flip back over to the solo. So let's put this into context. Think about the situation that happened today. I could have chosen to be frustrated, sad, mad. I mean, all kinds of things about the news that Cate wouldn't be joining me. And many times, we are mad at people and immediately add a label. They're wrong for doing this. And we think, why is this person doing this to me? When in fact, this challenge is happening for me, depending on my perspective. I could have canceled. I could have moped around. I could have done, all kinds of different things. And so my question for you is, what is your experience with labels? Because that is really what we're going to be talking about today. I could have also take the opportunity by the horns and stretch myself, which is what I'm doing today. And one of the things I have been getting really good at is allowing people to do what they feel is best for them, holding space for them, still caring for them and wanting the best for them, and also pivoting and finding alternative options. It is our responsibility and our responsibility only to determine what is best for us. It may not be a popular decision. It might actually piss some people off. It might ruin relationships. Yet we have to be able to sit with the decision and know what we want and need. And really, when you think about the situation with Cate, she needed to make that decision for herself. She needed to figure out what was best for her. And then based on that information, I could have gotten upset about it. But instead, I chose to say, you know what? You need to do what you need to do for you. And now I have a choice. What am I going to do with that choice? I chose to grow from it, expand from it. And so we must be able to reflect on how we contributed also to situations and learn from it and grow from it. If we continue to take a victim mentality, who are we really hurting? It's hurting us. So instead of labeling a person as bad or good, our best bet is to say, you know what? How did I contribute to this situation? And how can I grow from this? So I have this question: what is your experience with labels that I want to understand a little bit more from you? And then we'll break down, we'll go into each of the law into those sections. So Karina says, as they say, everything happens for a reason, 100%. I can tell you that, hopefully Carrie's okay with me sharing this. I don't think she will mind. She was in New York, and earlier before 2000, in 2001, she lived down next to the towers, the World Trade Center. So before 9/11, she kept having a lot of issues in her apartment, just nonstop issues. And so she could have labeled, this as, why is the universe doing this? Why is this keep happening to us? But she ended up listening to the universe, like, okay, maybe we're not supposed to be here. Like, we're not finding any fixes. We're not finding, anything to solve the issue. So they moved. They found a new place and they moved. This was in, I think, February of right before 9/11. So then that September, all of that happened. Where she was at, they would have been devastated. The whole place was basically blown out with dust and things like that. So when stuff happens, this has happened more than, when I sit back and really think about things, I'm like, oh, now I see the reason. Now I see the lesson in this, or why it is that I was supposed to go through this, because it's really lessons for us. And it's all about our perspective and how it is we choose to view it. It's that label that we give it. And then Carrie says, no one is one thing. Labels can pigeonhole people. 100%. And I'm going to talk about that today as well, because that is a huge comment there, Carrie. Margaret says, I do not believe in labels and believe life happens through us. I love that, Margaret. Thank you so much. Jen says, you must always remember that everyone is fighting a battle we know nothing about. We need to love and respect and know that people have to make hard decisions to take care of themselves. 100%. We never know the full story. We can only understand the story that we see, our perspective. And we're going to talk about that as well. Yes, detachment from all things is necessary. This is something I'm continuing to explore as well, Margaret. I think this is that would be a great topic to talk about. Carrie also says, I'm with Karina. Things happen for a reason. thankful we moved February 2001. I now look for the blessings in the hardship. 100%. Yes. Margaret, in my experience, labels are a way to other people. And then Jen says, because ultimately you are the only one responsible of you for the rest of your life. You have to take care of you and know what you can manage in your life and how much mental bandwidth you have in life. Yes, absolutely. So thank you guys for that. All right, I'm going to turn off that label or my banner. And I want to break down the law of relativity. So one of the things, the very beginning part said, every obstacle in life is an opportunity to change your perspective and improve yourself. So think about the shit that you're going through right now. And so, like, we're all going through shit. We just are all going through different shit, right? But when we reflect on a question, and that question might be, how are you framing a difficult situation you are facing? So with that question, think about what thoughts and emotions are coming up. Are you leaning towards the negative perspective? Or are you leaning and seeing positives in your life? Our natural instinct many times is to lean to that negative side. But now think about it as, how could we frame it differently? So if we reflect on what we could learn or gain from the experience, is there a silver lining, or is there a lesson to be gained? And we can look at it in all kinds of ways. We are choosing how it is we want to view it. And so let's look at a situation and apply this law. Let's say that you've been dealing with a health issue that limits your activities. So the typical framing is, we probably feel frustrated, we feel restricted by our condition, we start saying, why me? Why does this always happen? Why do I deserve this? But if we switch it and look at it in an alternative frame, we could see it as a chance to learn more about our body, embrace healthier habits moving forward. We could also dive into the spiritual meaning of our problem. And I've mentioned Louise Hay's before, and I've also mentioned this book, Messages from the Body. And so if you don't have this book, or you can't find the page on Louise Hay's, one of the other things you can do is you can go to Google AI and ask, what is the spiritual meaning of? And so, for example, I did of lower back pain, for example. And when I did this earlier, this is what it told me. It told me from AI, lower back pain can often have various interpretations in spiritual context, depending on different belief systems and traditions. And then it said, here are some common spiritual meanings associated with lower back pain. The first one was feeling unsupported. So let's think about that. Our back is supporting us day in, day out. So the interpretation is that our lower back is sometimes seen as a reflection of feeling unsupported in life, whether it's emotionally, physically, or financially. And it represents stress connected to those responsibilities and those burdens. It also said fear and anxiety. So when we think about that, some believe that the lower back pain can be tied to fears regarding the future or anxiety about one's journey in life. And it might suggest a need to confront and address those fears. It also said repression, that the pain can also represent repressed emotions or unresolved issues from the past. And it really serves as a signal to explore and release those feelings. And then the most obvious one is a need for support. The lower back, it's about supporting you. And so it's about feeling maybe you're not supported by others. And it really can highlight the importance of seeking help and engaging with community and loved ones. And for those that are into more the chakras, it's it's connected to the root chakra, which is imbalance. And so in chakra healing, lower back pain is often linked to the root chakra. And that's associated with safety, security, and connection to the earth. And pain in this area might indicate issues with grounding or stability. So going outside, putting your feet on the ground and grounding. I know a lot of people, Carrie's not on today, Cari, Carrie, but she actually got a grounding sheet. And I know the other Carrie, Karri, does have grounding sheets and things that she uses. And both of them have said how much it has helped them. I know Carrie Garrett's has said that it helped her with sleeping, just getting the grounding sheets and things like that. And of course, when you explore the spiritual meanings, it's also, important to understand that there may be a medical issue as well. Let's not push that to the side. There are always potentially medical issues that you need to address. But we need to also address not only the physical, but we need to address the emotional aspect that contribute to the healing. And the emotional side is what most people in America overlook. We've been taught to take a pill, do this, do that, but then the pain returns. So when we dig deeper into the spiritual meaning, we can unlock trapped emotional trauma, and we can also take time to fully release it. I think the thing to keep in mind is healing isn't a one and done, especially related to emotional. It is really a process. So think about, even as you have dealt with trauma, those things have come up. You've experienced that trauma. You've dealt with maybe the things you needed to deal with at that moment. It comes back. So sometimes emotions will do that. It'll do it in a process. So maybe you're not ready to explore everything at once. But continuing to focus on those feelings and sitting with yourself and understanding, how am I feeling? How does that make me feel? Where might I have felt that before? So for me, one of the things that I wanted to ask are, what are your thoughts about the emotional or spiritual connection? I know that several of you are really into that. I know for others, it may be newer. So I really just wanted to understand what your thoughts are about the emotional and spiritual side of this particular law. I also want to dive into the next part of the law as well. It says these challenges from the universe teach us to stop judging events and people as good or bad. And the law of relativity reminds us that everything exists in relation to our perspective. So let's think about the things in life we add labels to, like good and bad. And think about your upbringing. I was watching a TV show called Good Sex. And a couple came in because the female was struggling with an orgasm. And then another scenario was another couple, the man was having erectile dysfunction, ED, but medicine wasn't working. And when she started to explore both of those situations, what they discovered is they both had actually a mental block. It was really related to emotions. So we have blocks that happen sometimes because of our upbringing. So think about the things you were taught about related to sex, for example. Females a lot of time learned early on masturbation is bad. Girls shouldn't do that. And so when we add those labels, they can really impact us later on. So having an orgasm isn't bad. In order to do what you want, it requires getting in touch with your sensuality, your sexual side. And when you think about it, this label really kept her psychologically from orgasming with her husband. She had equated her vagina with something bad. And then, she was also assaulted, which also disconnected her from herself, and also thinking even further that her vagina was bad. And so she had to spend some time really exploring herself. And taking a look at her vagina, and I think she called it Virginia. They all gave whatever name they felt like they wanted to be able to develop a different relationship with it. But she spent time apologizing to it and saying, you know what, I've neglected you. I've also looked at you as bad, and you're not that. And just think about the tingling, like right now I'm getting a little bit of tingling as I say that, because it's like connecting with the rest of your body. It's saying, you know what, I've been calling you something, or I've been thinking a particular way about you, but I should love you. I should love you for what it is that you actually do provide. And then when you think about the man in the situation or his scenario, he actually was taught to suppress his feelings based on a past lover. So a lover, ended up teaching them that his desires needed to be suppressed. So he was pushing down his own desires, and that ended up manifesting into his penis. His penis started failing him. So it wasn't that he didn't need medicine. It wasn't a physical problem. It was an emotional problem. He was feeling suppressed. He was feeling he had to control. So he started to look at different ways in how it is that he was going to deal with things. And in the multiple episodes that I watched, what he did was, first, the person took him through, at first she was thinking, oh, he needs to reconnect to his manhood, reconnect to his masculine side. Then as she continued on, she was like, oh, wait, that's not the problem. He's actually doing really well there. It was actually about stepping back and not having to control things, because he was constantly controlling things. And so he was feeling pressure in performing, and that he needed to be a particular way, and he needed to just relax. He needed to be actually more on the receiving side, the submissive side of things, to allow for things to change. Because a lot of times when we have these blocks, we tend to go towards them. We tend to go into them and say, oh, well, we need to do this. When in actuality, we need to break the cycle. We need to stop what it is we're doing and go the other way. And so both of them had psychological blocks because they learned natural desires were bad. And so when we stop the act of labeling things as bad and good and shift away from that binary thinking, we open ourselves up to nuanced thinking. And so instead of viewing situations, actions, or individuals in an oversimplistic way, we can then embrace the complexity of situations. All right, I see we have lots of comments. Let's go over there, see what people are saying. Let me scroll back up. Give me just a second. All right. Okay. Maria says, healing has layers like me. Ooh. Maria is full of layers. Yes, and healing does have layers. And then Steve said, good, better, best. The label of good is lacking for me. The label best condemns me to the status quo. I choose better. Intentionally choosing to continuously improve my life enables a fulfilling life. I love this, Steve, because when we really think about it, we're never perfect. We're striving for better. We are, whenever I think about good, sometimes I also think about good enough. And that is really sort of status quo. But if we really look at things as, okay, well, this is where things are today. Where could they be tomorrow? So I'm constantly looking at that growth. I'm constantly looking at how it is that I can continue to be better. So I love that, Steve. Karina says, Sarah, today's topic is so much related to what me and my husband are going through right now. I am astrologically we are going through a transformation, mostly my husband, as he started to work on his emotional state. and put me and the family as a priority. We started talking more about everything and looking back, analyzing how and what was happening with our life. We also discovered that this transformation brings us more peace, emotional stability, approaching the challenges from a different, I know the word's going to be different. It cut it off. It's not showing me the rest. So I'm not sure what the rest of it said, Karina, but maybe a different approach is what you were saying, but a different way to be able to look at things. And is really the perspective. So I love that for you guys. And I know I've really been, as I've been watching you guys, just even like the more connection between you guys, the kiss that I saw between you two in the picture with each other. And so just finding that connection with each other is really a lot of what we can also do. And then Nick says, Margaret agreed, so we can be objective in our observations, Hermana. So I'm not sure what that word is. So you might have to educate me, Nicole. Living a life of gratitude helps diminish all my physical pain and mental suffering. 100%. We're going to be talking about that more today. Thank you. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe that is a Spanish word, and maybe that's why I don't know it. She said, "Happy New Month, blessings to you." Andrew adds, from the realm of Zen related to labels of good and bad. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. Ooh, Andrew, I love that. And then he said, but easier said than done. Of course. Absolutely. Carrie added, regarding the things happen for a reason. Luckily, I'm a person who likes change. Throughout my early career life, my employer of 7 years went through 3 reorgs. Many people got laid off. She adds, I, however, looked for the opportunity for advancement through jobs needed by the company in other states. Being able to be flexible with my location at the time allowed me a lot of advancement and to learn new skills. For many, the reorg was bad, but for me, it was good. Like the World Trade Center situation, I now listen to the universe is asking me to shift or move. I go out and ground. So putting feet on the ground and grass and gravel with early morning sun and late day sun. So thank you for that, Carrie. And she said, YouTube is limiting my text. Oh, okay, maybe it's a sign. Okay. And she said, for the job reorg situation, it was all relative, which matches your theme. Yes, absolutely. Andrew also adds, labels mask the actuality or reality of a thing. I like that. Practice makes better versus practice makes perfect. There's only perfect for me, and that's different for everyone. All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to take some water now. All right. Give me just a second. Really starts to get to your throat, doesn't it? We're 54 minutes in. Holy shit. I didn't realize I could talk this long. All right. I still got a lot more to come. So let's dive in a little bit more on labels. So when we embrace the complexity of the situations, which a lot of you were referencing, we recognize that most things and people have a mix of qualities. And I've said it before, I I am rhetorically a villain in someone's world because they view things simplistically. I'm sure that they say Sarah did this, therefore she's a bitch and she's a horrible person. And so the thing is that, everyone has positive traits and flaws. So instead of categorizing them as simply good or bad, we can try considering their full range of attributes. And so a part of that, we can really shift our perspective. And that involves understanding the context or the circumstances surrounding those actions. And what might seem like a bad decision could stem from a situation that maybe you don't fully understand. And so when we view things in a very myopic view, and we've talked about this before, so we put up a telescope and we see what that telescope has the ability to see. It's limited. Yet there's a lot more that is beyond that telescope that we may not see. So when we remove labels, we also reduce judgment. So by refraining from labeling, we can foster a more compassion for others that are around us. It also opens up doors to empathy and understanding, and it can also lead to improving relationships. And then most of removing labels really encourages us to grow beyond our simplistic views. So we previously did an episode. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was on black and white thinking, and that really would be a good one to go back and just take a look at. We also did one on labeling as I think about it. And so when we stop labeling actions simply as good and bad, it can make it easier to see opportunities for growth and change for ourselves and for others. So instead of, think about a situation you're dealing with, and if we were defined by a single mistake, individuals, have the ability to view and are capable of learning and evolving. So if someone makes a mistake, why are we choosing to only see them by that mistake? This is one of the conversations I've actually had with my daughter. She has had a particular experience with her girlfriend, her boyfriend. She was like, I just can't get over this one thing that he did. And I was like, okay, so, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to choose to move past that? Are you just going to continue to hold on and go, but they did this, so we make mistakes. And if we choose to label someone by a single mistake, then we're also not giving them the ability to evolve, and not giving them the credit of they also may have learned along the way. And so removing the labels also improves our decision making by allowing for a more thorough evaluation of the situation, which can also lead to a better outcome. And removing labels in our speech and our mindset really promotes a more flexible and open approach, as Carrie was talking about earlier, and understanding the world. And it cultivates tolerance and encourages deeper connections to others. And I know you're probably saying, that sounds good, Sarah, but what steps might I take to remove labels? And I get it. The idea of not labeling someone as purely bad or negative while they're also impacting your life or other, just negatively impacting things can be challenging, but it can also be beneficial. So here are some things to think about. I have 8 items to consider. 1, if we take time to understand the other person's perspective. So we try to see the situation from their point of view and consider their background, their struggles, their motivations that might be contributing to the behavior. I want to emphasize, this does not excuse their action, but it can foster empathy. And if we aren't willing to talk through and we shut people down because we have predetermined that it won't help, like, I'm not going to talk to you about this particular topic because I already know you're going to, do this, then we are applying a label to them. And they won't understand, a lot of times we'll say, well, they just don't understand. So I might as well not try. But that doesn't really help with understanding someone's perspective. And the second item is really to focus on the behavior, not the person. So it sometimes can be really hard, but if we separate the individual from their actions, so instead of saying they're a bad person, you might think their actions are harmful. This can really help you as you're talking to them to address the specific behavior without labeling the entire character of the person. So think about, what are the specific behaviors that you have observed? And the fact is that you're just giving the facts. So the facts, nothing but the facts. I've noticed XYZ. So you're just simply stating these are the specific behaviors that I have observed. And then sometimes number 3 is setting boundaries. We also have to have clearly defined boundaries and also define what behavior is not acceptable. And we had a whole episode on behaviors. And so while maintaining compassion, it's also essential to protect yourself and others from negative impacts. So communicating those boundaries calmly and assertively. Now, keep in mind, there are some people that will not accept your boundaries. They will think you're trying to control them, when in actuality, you're simply saying, this is something that is unacceptable. And if they're not willing to hear that, that's also telling you more information. But if we want to grow together, we have to be able to hear what other people are saying and thinking in order for us to connect. But if someone isn't willing to accept your boundaries, they're also telling you that they're not a safe place for you. So although we need to see people's perspectives and we need to not judge them based on their behaviors, we need to clearly state the boundaries. And then we also need to know, where those boundaries might not be accepted. But ultimately, this is about number 4, encouraging dialogue. If you feel comfortable engaging in the conversation, just sharing your feelings about the behavior that we talked about and its impact, sometimes people aren't aware of how their actions are actually affecting others. But keep in mind, dialogue is also a two-way street as well. And sometimes you can only go there so many times before you're like, well, okay, we're just going to have to move on. And then really this ends up promoting accountability. So it encourages them to reflect on their behavior and also the consequences. So one of the ways that we can do that is asking open-ended questions that can help them think critically about their actions. So as we're dealing with situations, sometimes we also do leading questions like, you did this, that type of thing. Can you see how that impacts me? Instead, you can say simply, in this situation, can you see how I might have been impacted? So we're not adding judgment. We're not adding the leading aspect to that. We're simply asking the question to be able to get them to think about it and think about what it is that they potentially did, and to see where they're at in their perspective. The 6th thing is to seek support. If this negatively impacts you in a significant way, it also might require you to go to professional. I know for me, every other week, I go to a depth psychologist. I seek support. I think that sometimes we go to friends, we go to family, and those things can also be helpful. I also would caution us in that, because sometimes those people also will bobble their heads and go, yes, that's horrible. And, they'll reinforce your side of the story. So going to someone who's objective, a professional, can also help us to navigate like where we're, might have faults. Where it is that, the things that we could work on, the things that, maybe we were harmful versus the things that were harmful from someone else, or just understanding things in a different perspective. My daughters told me the other day that she was like, you know what? She was like, I think that all kids need to go through counseling. She was like, I think that it would be super beneficial for them. And I would say that most adults should go to counseling. If I could change anything in the world, it would be that. It would be that we have free professional mental help for people, because I can't tell you enough how much it has really helped me to be able to process things related to what it is that I'm learning in the situation, or the things that I need to reflect upon, the things that I also need to say, you know what? This is something for you to own. This is, this is something that is related to you. This is something that you're struggling with, and sort of pushing that off like, nope, that's not good for me. And I can't continue there. Because the seventh one is prioritizing self-care. We have to also protect our well-being. We have to know what is good for us, what is not good for us. And in this situation, Cate was like, you know what? I can't continue to do that. She evaluated and said, I have all of these other things, whatever the reasons were, she decided that this wasn't something she could continue to do. And we have to do that. And so we engage in activities that promote our mental health and help us with the surrounding supportive people. It's those things that are important from a prioritization of self-care. And then the last thing is let it go. Let it go. Let it go. So let it go when necessary. Sometimes, despite our best effort, it may be necessary to distance ourselves from someone who consistently harms us. And so do this with understanding, but also with a firm commitment to your own well-being. All right, I have the last part of this particular law. It is challenges are a part of life, but they aren't as bad as they seem. Always be grateful for your challenges as life is happening for you, not to you. And as you saw, lots of people said in here, I count my blessings. So I look at the blessings in things. I'm grateful for the challenges. I'm grateful for the things that happen to us. So I'm going to give you a scenario to think about. Let's say that you are going through financial troubles. You've unexpectedly faced financial difficulties, such as losing maybe a source of income. But whatever the situation, you are thinking about, like, how am I going to deal with this? So you're reflecting and saying, oh my gosh, it feels overwhelming. This is stressful. You could maybe get mad at people. You could blame someone else. The challenge could, it can lead you down a funnel of what am I going to do? And, oh my gosh, other people aren't helping me, or whatever it might be. We're choosing to view that in the negative way. If we look at it in the alternative way, we could look at it as this challenge could lead us to budget better. We could explore new income opportunities. We could rethink our spending habits. And we also might discover new skills, or maybe a passion that can help us, to become more financially wiser in the long run. And so situations like this, lead us to a scarcity mindset a lot of times. They hold us back and they keep us from evaluating options. And so I want to talk a little bit about scarcity mindset. And you're probably saying, what is that? So a scarcity mindset refers to a belief that there is never enough, whether it's money, resources, time, opportunities. So when we're faced with financial difficulties, this mindset can lead to fear and anxiety. It can lead to blame and bitterness. And that fear and anxiety may show as someone that is focusing on what they lack, and it causes panic and anxiety, which can make a difficult situation feel even more overwhelming. And with the blame and the bitterness, you might find yourself blaming the situation on others, leading to feeling of frustration and helplessness. And so when we unexpectedly face financial challenges, a scarcity mindset may manifest itself in several ways. It could be overwhelming stress. You feel that there's not enough money to cover bills, which then leads to stress, thoughts about your future. There is then negative self-talk. You might think, I'll never get out of this. I can't afford to do anything, reinforcing that idea of lack. And then it can also lead to isolation. You could withdraw from friends and community and feel ashamed of your situation, which then further perpetuates loneliness and that overall stress. So if we shift from scarcity to abundance, we can really look at the challenge as an opportunity, which is what the law is saying, by adopting an abundance mindset. So we can explore new opportunities. Instead of fixating on the losing the income, we could look for alternative income streams or side gigs, and that shift can foster creativity and resilience. We could look at budgeting and financial skills. We could start budgeting to track where our money goes. And this not only helps us manage what we have, but can also uncover areas where we can save. We could look at reevaluating spending habits. So we could take a closer look at our expenses. And this may teach us ways to differentiate between needs and wants, and really promoting more of a mindful spending approach. We could embrace it through learning. We could discover new skills or passions related to finances, such as investing, personal finance management, or even cooking instead of dining out. And then the last thing is really related to gratitude. So focusing on what we do have, whether it's supportive friends, skills, or resources, we really can cultivate gratitude, and that can shift our mindset towards abundance and fostering resilience. And so I want us to think about that. So financial troubles can feel suffocating. And when we view them in a scarcity lens, we need to reframe them. And so, but the reframing of that perspective allows us to be able to, it encourages growth and learning. And when we embrace that challenge, it can lead to valuable life lessons and a more secure future. So I wanted people to have some real life ideas of examples of how that could impact them. All right, I'm going to go into the comments. Karina says, if you're not a bad person, why you choose to act in a particular way? Humans have a perfect ability to control his or her actions. It is about choosing do or not to do. Your emotions many times come in the way, but that is what life is all about. Gaining experiences, change, listen, learn. Yes. If by a certain age you did not learn from that, that is ignorance and a choice. Ooh, Karina, coming in hot. And so, yes, I mean, people can choose to ignore and not learn and make excuses. And you see that all the time from people. And then Steve says, living in the past has always been an interesting concept for me. Physically, it's impossible. Rather than reliving mistakes over and over, accepting mistakes and learning from them enables positive growth. Yes. And then Carrie said, also, does a person say one thing and do another? I look at actions over words. Ooh, that one's a good one, Carrie. All right, let's see. Was there anything else? I think, oh, yep. Carrie also said, I don't judge people by one mistake because we all make mistakes. I look at a person's data points, because it tells me who they are. Is the action recurring or a singular misjudgment? Yep, agreed. All right. And then Karina says, there is a great strength in accepting your mistakes. Not everybody accepts to do it, unfortunately. And then Maria let us know she's going to come back later for the replay. She said, thanks, I'm doing a great job. Thank you, Maria. Going a lot longer than I actually thought I was going to. All right, so let's close things out. We're at 1:14. Holy shit. I thought I was going to be going 30 minutes today. Look at me. All right. So I want to leave us with this. Remember that the law of relativity isn't just a scientific principle. And let me move that off real quick. Um, and so it's also a powerful framework for how we can approach our lives. So, just like Einstein's theory, our experiences and our challenges are relative to our perspectives. So, think about that bending, world, that planet that is pushing the Earth, and the way that things are bending. We can bend our minds and our perspectives as well. And so life will always throw us obstacles. They'll always come our way. But it's up to us to choose how we respond. So instead of letting frustration take hold and labeling others as bad, let's take a deeper look at our circumstances. And we can do this by asking ourselves, how can I grow from this? And what can I learn? And so by shifting our mindset, we can transform challenges into opportunities for self-improvement. Each obstacle is a chance for us to stretch ourselves and find new paths forward that we may not have even realized unless we went down the path. So the next time you face a setback or a tough moment, remember the twin paradox. It's not just about how the situation affects you, it's about how you allow it to shape your perspective and growth. So, what I would like for us to do is to embrace our challenges and be grateful by finding the silver lining within them. Our journey is not just about what happens to us, but how we choose to perceive and respond to those events. I want to thank you all for joining me today and listening, and for the amazing interaction. And I can't wait to see the incredible ways that you will apply this, and also the journey that I'm going to be taking in the change that I have. And so what I want us to do is move forward in curiosity and positivity. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And also remember, next week, I'm going to have Adam Hoots on, and I'm going to be interviewing him about his experiences related to the law of relativity. Should be a good one, I'm just going to say. So come back next week. I will see you then, and then be on the lookout for guest co-hosts as well. So everybody have a badass Friday, an amazing weekend, and I hope you have a great week as you head into Monday. Thank you all.